Welcome back to my channel, everybody. I am RL Melpica, the Eat Coach, natural health and diet specialist. And today I wanted to address all of the meat eaters in the carnivore community who have flooded my channel recently, thanks to the YouTube algorithm, I guess, and have left some interesting comments that I wanted to address on here. I thought it'd be easier to address it with the video versus responding to the comments. So first off, look, I enjoy this type of discussion because at the end of the day, this is sharing information for all of us to grow and to learn and whatnot. And by no means would I ever downplay or put any community down by any means. If carnivore is the way for you, if omnivore is the way for you, if keto is the way for you, if the Mediterranean diet's the way for you, look, more power to you. I am I'm all about the betterment of humanity. And I'm putting that out there. I love all of you. I spread love. All I'm doing is sharing my philosophies, my thoughts on what I feel has impacted my life and how I feel that the human race and humanity in itself can be the best version of itself, and that is through the frugivore diet. That is through understanding the optimal diet. Do I expect everybody to be a frugivore? I'm not even 100% frugivore, right? It's about in my opinion, it's about sharing that knowledge of understanding that I have learned through my studies, through my mentors, and sharing with all of you so you guys can make those decisions, apply it within your own life, and come to the conscious decision of what's best for you. But like I said, I've been flooded with a lot of things, so I wanted to address some of the questions that some of my commenters, viewers have posed when it comes to the carnivore side versus what I profess. So I'm gonna start off with some of these questions. First and foremost, all right, there is nothing in plants that humans need to eat to live, while there are things in meat that humans do need to eat to live. There is no essential carbohydrate or fiber. All right, so let me address that. Okay. First off, you have to ask yourself, all right, so the meat that we're eating, where are they getting these things that are essential to live? Right? We're eating a cow and a cow is providing us with stuff that's essential to live. Well, where's that cow getting that them nutrients and that nutrition from? Right? When you start to break that down, you start to really see what the truth is. But I wanted to address the main point. There is no essential carbohydrate or fiber. Ding, 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 ding. Carbohydrates themselves are essential to live. That is what our cells feed off of. That is their energy source. Understand? So that's why the body, when it does consume meat or it does consume anything per se, it is going to convert it to glucose so the cells can utilize it for energy. Understand? All right. So look, sometimes, look, and I'll give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Sometimes we get flooded with all this scientific jargon and these layers of things that we can't see the simple answer right in front of our face. And that's kind of where my response to this question comes from. All right. So look, we need carbs to live. Without carbs, we don't survive. Right. You can talk about the carnivore diet or even the keto diet and whatnot, and utilizing fat as the energy source. But at the end of the day, what is fat being converted to? All right. So let's continue. Another one is, what about our acidic stomach, similar to other carnivore scavengers to neutralize harmful bacteria and break down protein, this, that, and the other? Okay, so check this out. No. So I know there's a lot of memes that go around that show that our stomach's pH is at 1.5, which is similar to other scavengers, right? Lions, tiger, things of that nature. And don't quote me on the lions and tigers part. I just know one of them is 1.5. I can't remember. But that is looking at the low end, right? So our stomach pH ranges anywhere between 1.5 and 4. The kicker is that it's dependent on what we're eating. You understand? While these animals, they know their diet. They are very conditioned and programmed in their diet. They don't have those conscious choices that we do as humans. So their stomach pH is going to pretty much stay the same all the time. Ours is going to differ. And the reason that our stomach pH is where it is within that range is because our diet is all over the place. Because of thousands and thousands of years of us eating the wrong stuff, our stomach has to compensate for it. It has to break it down, or else what will happen? We will die. We will not survive as a species. So utilizing that one small little factoid of our stomach pH as a reason that we should be eating meat, it kind of doesn't hold any weight, because if you look at all the other factors in our physiology, it clearly lets you know that we should not be consuming meat, right? So like I said, once again, I'm trying to give the benefit of the doubt. I understand how a lot of this comes into play due to misinformation. But when you start to look at things from a simple perspective, it'll give you all your answers. And when you look to nature, it'll give you all your answer. You have to remember who they're measuring this stomach acid from. They're not pulling in raw vegans and frugivores and people who are eating the species specific diet. No, they're pulling people who've been eating the wrong diet. So obviously that those numbers are going to be skewed. That's why there's such a range when it comes to stomach pH for humans. All right. So the next one. All right. So this one is talking about fermenters. There's foregut, hindgut, and colon fermenters. This individual says we are colon fermenters because we have almost no sesame anymore. Okay. The truth is, actually, we are hindgut fermenters. We have always been hindgut fermenters. And you talk about us not having a sesame anymore. Well, why do you think the sesame has shrunk? Why? Why would we originally be hindgut fermenters and then we're starting to shift towards a colon fermenter because the sesame is shrinking? Why did the sesame shrink in the first place? Through thousands and thousands and generations of bad eating habits, bad lifestyle choices. Remember, we talk about two sides of chemistry. There's the acidic side and there's the alkaline side. Which side of chemistry would ultimately deteriorate our sesame? The destructive side of chemistry, acid forming foods. So, the reason, and it's not just the sesame, there's a bunch of things that are happening within our body. Like we are at a bad state from a human perspective, from a societal perspective, from a humanity perspective when it comes to health because of generations and generations of these generational curses of bad eating habits. And we're paying for it. That's why this channel, that's why I do what I do. I'm trying to break those curses. I know I'm breaking it within my family lineage. That's my first and foremost goal, but I want to share it with all of you as well. Keep it simple. Look at, like, break down these questions, these thoughts, these ideas that you have that you've been told, and break down the layers to the beginning aspect of it. Why would we have this issue in the first place? Why would we shift from a hindgut fermenter to possibly a colon fermenter? Think about that. All right, the next one. The human large intestine is not really very large, while the small intestine is very large. Well, here, however you want to break down our intestines, they are not built to consume and break down meat, plain and simple. They're not. When you look at our intestines and you look at the way our digestive system work, it is very similar to great apes. Okay. And someone may say, well, some apes eat meat. Well, look, when you're in survival consciousness, you're going to eat anything. When we were in survival consciousness, that's the reason we eat meat to this day. It's because we migrated to places where we couldn't get vegetation. So we had to survive. And when you have to survive, you will eat anything. But when you break down the physiology of us, we are similar to a frugivore species, is what it is. Can't debate that. I mean, you can try to come up with as many things as possible to help build up and strengthen your argument, but at the end of the day, when you look at it in a totality from a species appropriate diet, we are frugivores. All right. Next one. If fiber is so good for the bowels, why are we told to eat a low fiber diet when we have problems before surgery? Crohn's disease, ulcerative colitis, diverticulitis, or other gastrointestinal conditions? Well, first of all, you have to ask yourself, who's telling you that? Where are you getting that information? Well, the allopathic community, the medical community, the doctor. Why? Because they're setting you up for something that is a treatment versus curing the actual origin of what's going on. When you're talking about Crohn's disease, when you're talking about ulcerative colitis or any itis or any gastrointestinal condition, it comes down to what? It comes down to the diet because you weren't eating whole foods, because you were eating a highly acidic diet. Now you have inflammation in these different places, which have caused functional issues within your body. What is inflammation? I know what they tell you inflammation is, but what truly is inflammation? Inflammation is your body healing tissue. It is flushing water to that area to heal the tissue. That's why it doesn't feel so good, similar to a fever. You understand? So when you're talking about not eating fiber before you go to one of these surgeries, well, you're going to a surgery. You're going to something that is going to add so much imbalance to your body. You're trying to keep it from actually functioning as it should. So I throw out anything related to the allopathic community when it's talking about doing something before a surgery, especially when the surgery is due to something that the body is actually piloting to heal you. Once again, keep it simple. Look to the underlying factor of all these things. When you start to do that, you start to realize, oh, well, I get it now. All right. Next one. Transit time of fiber is pretty quick. The more you have, indicating it is not welcome to the body. All right. I don't even need to read any more of that question. Okay. So I want you to think about what you're saying here. Transit time of fiber is pretty quick. The more you have indicating it is not welcome in the body. You're looking at things from a very isolated, supplemental type of mind state. Fiber is built into whole foods to stop you from overeating. It is built into these foods to stop the overconsumption of the sugar within the food. That's why fruits are so important to eat in their whole form versus smoothies or juices per se. You should be having a bowel movement an hour to 2 hours after every meal. That's how the body was designed. If you look at animals, that is pretty much what happens. I mean, you could talk about cows and horses and that things of that nature, but they're grazing all day. So they're defecating all day. But humans, when we eat, if we're eating the correct foods, we should be defecating, we should be having a bowel movement 1 to 2 hours after every meal. Do we? No, because we're chronically dehydrated species, chronically. And we've most of us are constipated. Even if you're going once a day, technically you're constipated. You should be having multiple bowel, unless you only eat one time a day, of course. But yeah, 1 to 2 hours after, because that's the time that fruit and the foods that we're supposed to eat will digest. Now, if you eat some nuts, some seeds, some more fattening fruits, it may take a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, you should be having a bowel movement shortly after every single meal. So fiber is doing its job. That's what it was built into the foods to do. To sit here and think that fiber is something that the body doesn't need. All I'm gonna say is this: look, eliminate fiber from your diet and see how it works out for you. That's all I'm gonna say. Once again, let's keep it simple. Let's get to the bottom of the layers of these things, okay? The Randle cycle shows we should eat high fat or high fat or high carbs, yet there are very few high carbohydrate foods in the wild. Um, Fruit, anyone? I mean, there are fruits everywhere. Now, some will say, well, how do you get fruit in, northern climates and things of that nature? Well, guess what? We are built as a human species to be tropical people. We come from a tropical place. Now, have we migrated other places? Yes, we have. But guess what? Look at animals, look at nature. They stay where they're supposed to stay. They stay where they're supposed to be. Now, through our intelligence and our consciousness, we were able to colonize and look, colonize is a really shitty word. Believe me, I'm not into that by any means, but I'm just giving you an idea of where we are. Like, we have been able to migrate to places, and our intelligence has given us the ability to allow us to survive in those places. But look, this is 2025. We have the ability to go to the grocery store and have food exported into where we live to where we can eat the correct foods. But if you break it down to the beginning, we are tropical people. And there are very high carb foods in the wild. They're everywhere and they're beautiful and they're attractive to us and they're satiating to us and they are extremely beneficial to us. All right, and this is the last one I got. If we had been eating a high carb diet to grow our brain over a millennia, then we would be adapted to a high carb diet. But instead, a high carb diet is quite detrimental, and the body only wants 4 grams of glucose in the blood at any time. Dementia and Alzheimer's are significantly linked to glucose. Okay, there's a lot to digest there. Okay, so check this out. First and foremost, all right, we've adapted to a high carb diet. We are built for a high carb diet. The problem is that for so many years, we've become so tolerant to standard American diet, to a high, heavy meat eating diet, that it has completely thrown off the balance of our bodies. That tolerance is a big reason why people fall into dementia or Alzheimer's. Because when we're able to tolerate a poison, that means we consume more of it. It's very similar to alcohol. The more tolerant you become, the more you can absorb without having an effect. And what happens is it builds, it builds, it builds. And then all of a sudden, you find yourself, with a liver issue. Or you find, and in our case, what we're talking about here, dementia and Alzheimer's. Because at the end of the day, dementia and Alzheimer's is linked to toxic toleration. We're talking neurological here, and restricted blood flow to the brain. Now, what would restrict blood flow to the brain? Clogged arteries, right? When you think of all the toxic food that we've been eating, shit, the toxic air we breathe, to the electricity that we're around constantly, you add in all the medication, isolated supplementation that we take. That's your answer to dementia and Alzheimer's. It's got nothing to do with high carbs. What they do is they test a sick society and find this high carbs, this high sugar, and they link it to Alzheimer's and dementia. But what type of sugar are we talking about? Are we talking about natural sugar? Are we talking about refined sugar from processed foods? Are we talking about complex carbs, things that we're not built to eat? So once again, peel back those layers and you start to see the truth. Eliminate the toxicity, eliminate the overabundance of fat, unhealthy and processed foods, and we will see a major reduction. And medicine, you'll see a major reduction in dementia and Alzheimer's. Nothing to do with eating fruit, leafy greens, nuts, or seeds. I can guarantee you that. So I hope for all of you that you enjoyed this particular video. And if you did, please give me a thumbs up. To the meat eating community out there, to my carnivore peeps, look, I got love for you guys, man. Look, if you believe in what you're doing, go for it. You know what I'm saying? Go for it. That's your conscious choice. That's the beauty of platforms like this. That's the beauty of being in the information age where we have at our fingertips so much information that it's hard to decipher, but we can actually put these things into place ourselves to come up with our own answers. That's the beauty of all this. So more power to you. And look, I welcome the comments. I welcome you guys bringing stuff to my attention because I love to address it. I love to talk about it. I truly do. I have a passion for this stuff, right? Let's keep it classy. Let's keep it professional, but please bring more questions, bring more feedback. You know, just Keep it cool, all right? For everybody else, look, if you're looking to learn more about the optimal diet, about the natural diet, about being the healthiest version of yourself, mentally, physically, consciously, spiritually, give me a subscribe, and you'll get notified whenever I drop new videos. And like I said, give me a thumbs up, help me out with the algorithm. Please comment, share feedback. I love it all. All right. Peace, love, and light, everybody. I'm out of here.